When you hear the term trade war, what comes to mind? Probably chaos, right? Businesses collapsing, massive disruption. But what if I told you that inside all that chaos, there's a secret? A secret to how some companies don't just survive, they actually come out of it thriving.
It's really the ultimate stress test for any business. And the answer, according to some fascinating new research, isn't some clever financial trick. It's something much more fundamental, something that's baked right into the very DNA of a company.
So, first things first, let's get a handle on the battlefield. The moment a trade war is declared, it triggers an immediate and, frankly, brutal corporate crisis. The shockwaves are felt instantly. The first punch is always the tariffs. All of a sudden, the cost of just doing business skyrockets. We're talking about massive financial shocks that can literally erase your profit margins overnight and shatter business models that took years and years to build.
And that's just the first domino to fall. See, tariffs don't just stop at the border. Oh no, they cascade down through these incredibly intricate global value chains that companies spent decades putting together. Suddenly, sourcing parts and shipping your products becomes a complete logistical nightmare.
So, with costs going through the roof and operations in total chaos, investor confidence just evaporates. Poof! Researchers have a name for it: trade policy uncertainty. And it's basically poison for the market. Capital flees, stock prices tumble, and companies find themselves financially squeezed from all sides.
Faced with this kind of onslaught, where does a company even turn? Well, the first line of defense isn't a government bailout or some clever legal strategy. It's internal. It's something we can think of as a corporate immune system. Now, what's really important here is how we're defining corporate culture. This is not about ping-pong tables or mission statements on a wall. The research shows it's a tangible, measurable asset that acts as a critical buffer, mitigating the damage from those external shocks. And studies have actually pinpointed the exact traits that form this cultural shield. Innovation, well, that lets a company pivot and find new solutions. Diligence ensures people work smarter to get over obstacles. Teamwork guarantees everyone is pulling in the same direction, while a focus on quality, that maintains customer trust when everything else is in chaos. But these traits aren't just about feeling good in the office. They translate directly into a measurable advantage: better operational performance. Companies with these strong cultures are simply better at adapting their operations and executing when the pressure is really on. And here's a really fascinating twist. This cultural immune system is actually most powerful for privately owned companies. So why is that? Well, state-owned enterprises often have a government safety net. For private firms, a strong culture essentially becomes their safety net. It replaces that government backstop and gives them the raw resilience to stand on their own 2 feet. Okay, so a strong internal culture is the shield. But in a trade war, you can't just play defense, right? So what's the sword? It turns out the most effective offensive strategy is to look outward by investing in corporate social responsibility, or CSR. I know, this sounds completely counterintuitive. Your company is fighting for survival, so why on earth would you divert precious resources to social or environmental causes? The answer is that it's not philanthropy. It's a calculated, strategic move. Here's how it works as a strategy. First, investing in CSR signals to the market that you're playing the long game, not just scrambling for short-term survival. Second, it builds a deep well of trust with your customers, suppliers, and employees. And third, the research is clear. It actually reduces the risk of a catastrophic stock price crash. And this is not just a theory. The data proves it. This quote from a recent study shows that when the trade war hit, foreign investors actively sought out and invested more money in companies with strong CSR track records. They saw it as a sign of stability in a sea of risk. And you can see it right here in the data. There's a clear divergence. When the crisis hit, capital didn't just flee, it shifted. It flowed towards companies with a demonstrated commitment to social responsibility, effectively rewarding them for a values-driven strategy. In the end, doing good was, quite literally, good business. So these aren't just isolated decisions. When you multiply these individual corporate strategies, building internal culture, investing in CSR, by thousands of companies all around the world, you start to see a fundamental reshaping of the entire global economy. We hear a lot about the end of globalization, but the reality is a lot more nuanced. It's not a full-scale retreat. It's what experts are calling selective de-globalization, a strategic recalibration. Companies aren't just going home. They're getting smarter about where they operate.
And they now have a whole playbook of strategies to choose from. A company can go for a substantial decoupling, that's a full withdrawal, all the way to a purely symbolic one. But most are landing somewhere in the middle, on a balanced approach, carefully weighing politics, risk, and their operational needs.
Navigating this complex new world also requires a new toolkit. To make these tough strategic calls, companies are increasingly relying on AI and advanced data analytics to forecast everything from supply chain disruptions to shifts in market sentiment.
So, what's the big takeaway from all of this? Well, it's that in the 21st century economy, a company's character, its internal culture, and its external values is no longer a soft skill that you can just relegate to the HR department. It's become a hard, critical, strategic asset that is absolutely essential for survival and growth. Which leaves us with a powerful final question. In an era that's defined by geopolitical tension and economic uncertainty, maybe the most valuable thing a company can possess isn't its patents or its factories, but its character. What do you think?